Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between. Welcome back to Geeks Watch. Sorry. Today I want to talk about Walt Disney's film Atlantis, The Lost Empire, an image of which you will see here. This came out in 2001, and it is a story of, well, mild spoilers, whatever. The movie came out in 2001. So, the story is about Milo Thatch, a young linguist who has somewhat inherited his grandfather's obsession with the city of Atlantis. His grandfather eventually became a laughingstock because of his obsession with Atlantis, and Milo is, in spite of being a decent scientist, has been relegated to working in the basement of a museum. So, after being ridiculed by his employers yet again, he is offered a chance to actually join an expedition to Atlantis by an eccentric millionaire named Whitmore, I think. Anywho. He's assembled a captain and a crew. It turns out that Milo's grandfather discovered the Shepherd's Journal, which details how to find Atlantis. It was discovered in Iceland, but when his grandfather died, Milo was still a child. So he entrusted the Shepherd's Journal with Whitmore until Milo was of age and could help join the expedition. Whitmore is doing this because he made a bet with Milo's grandfather. If he found the Shepherd's Journal, he would fully fund the expedition. So he's keeping his promise to his friend. They do go on some submarine adventures. They find an underwater cavern, which leads them to an underwater caverns and tunnels. They find the lost city of Atlantis. It turns out that the crew that Miles is with are a bunch of mercenaries only interested in treasure and have no concern for what happens to Atlantis when they get there. It turns out there were some survivors still living there, and so on and so forth. So, about the film. I've got a CD attached to this thing. I never knew it. There's quite a bit of backstory for this thing. This was the first film they made after The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and the producers and the directors wanted to keep that team together, the writers and animators and things like that together as a team, and decided to make another film that was inspired by Jules Verne. Jules Verne's stories of Journey to the Center of the Earth and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, the footprints of which you can see all over this story. They went to like caves in South America. They did all kinds of research, and they hired a linguist to create the Atlantean language. 2 bits trivia. One, the person who invented the Atlantean language is also the same person who invented the Klingon language for Star Trek. And also the character of Milo visually is based on the linguist that they hired. Not exactly one for one, but they kind of based that linguist on the character of Milo and the character of the linguist. So a little bit of trivia there. The artistic style of the film. This is very different from Disney's other films in terms of how it looks visually. The artwork is based on the comic artwork of Mike Mignola, who is the creator of Hellboy. I did not know this when I first saw this film. Being a comic enthusiast, I stopped collecting a long time ago for various reasons, but I was familiar with his work at least. Even though I was never a huge fan of the Hellboy comic book, he'd done other things besides that, and I was familiar with his artwork. And I knew there was something so distinctive about the look of the film, and when I heard that Mike Mignola was one of the artistic consultants of the film, I was like, oh yeah, I can see that totally. Just the designs of the characters, a lot of the designs of the backgrounds too, like the look of Atlantis, the city itself, and all the other things around it. There's a picture early on, or not a picture, but a scene early on in the film when Miles first meets Whitmore, he's got a big fish tank in his library. Whitmore has a big fish tank in his library that has a couple of coelacanths in it, and they are 100% Mike Mignola's artwork. There were other things too, but the characters are very blocky, very distinctive in style. Um, there's the character, the King of Atlantis. Just the way his knuckles are drawn, it's like, you know, all these little details I can see are like totally inspired by Mike Mignola's artwork. So I kind of like that bit. Another thing too is there's tons of little details in this film if you bother to look for them. The coelacanth is one of them because coelacanths were thought to be extinct until they were rediscovered around the time that this would have taken place, 1914. They're a living fossil. And just looking at, you know, when Miles is working in the basement in the beginning of the film in his observatory, you know, the museum he works at, all the little tidbits and things that he has written around in his basement workshop, the things in Whitmore's library. There's all these wonderful little details if you can take the time to look for them. And having watched this film several times, I do look for these things. This is also different from a lot of Disney films in that this is not a musical. There's no music. There's no singing and dancing in this. This is just a straight up adventure film. And damn, there's something else I was going to mention. I should learn to write scripts, but I'm not going to. There was also some controversy. There was a Japanese anime film that had some similar concepts, but there was actually some talk of the some of the animators and writers of the script of that anime wanted their production company to sue Disney for plagiarism, but the production company did not want to mess with Disney's lawyers. I did a little bit of research about that other film, and I think there's enough differences that it's questionable. The people who wrote this film said they had never even heard of the other film, which I can kind of believe. I think the similarities are, personally, I think the similarities are coincidental. You know, Jules Verne has inspired a lot of other people to do work. His stories are iconic in the science fiction genre. They're historical, and you know, lots of people base tons of stuff off of them. So never can tell. The voice acting work, the actors they made, not actors they made, but actors they had do some of these parts. I don't want to see exactly anything here. Michael J. Fox did the voice of Milo. Just the other voice actors. There's so many good characters in this film. So many funny characters. Clyde Christensen plays Helga, the second in command of the expedition. This kind of sultry femme fatale who's also like a no nonsense, you know, tough as nails character. Love Clyde Christensen. Huge fan of her on Babylon 5 and other things, but this too. She had said she had no idea what her character looked like when she read her lines. So she said when she saw her character design, she was so glad that her character wasn't ugly, because she was concerned about that. Just so many good voice actors. None of it is in the back of this thing. Usually they have like credits and stuff, but I don't see anything here. Father Guido Sarducci voiced this character. I think his name is Don Lemon. He was he was somewhat more well known in my teenage years, playing a character on Saturday Night Live, a kind of hip, not quite so serious Catholic priest. Used the exact same voice and accent in this character of Vinny. There's a the ship's doctor, Moliere, their geologist. There's Cookie the cook. One of the, I got your 4 basic food groups: beans, bacon, whiskey, and lard. Ah, God, that makes me laugh every time. um, just the cast of characters is so eccentric and interesting to me. This film did not do well in the box office. It wasn't a flop. On a budget of 120 million, it made like around 180 million, so around 60-some million in profits. But Disney's used to making a lot more money than that in profits in their films, so this was not a flop, but it wasn't a big hit either. It made us it in Disney dollars, it made a small profit, and critically, it did not do well either. Um, One of the criticisms was that this wasn't really a kids' film. It was, a more um, an adventure film that was more geared for adults. And I happen to agree with that, but I'm not sure why. I've made comments about some of the other films I've reviewed recently in the past, about films that are geared more towards children. Geared more towards adults, that are marketed towards children. And I think some of those critics are missing the point, and that kids are more sophisticated than people give them credit for. This does not have a lot of cutesy sidekick characters. It's more of a standard action adventure film, like Jules Verne, like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, like Journey to the Center of the Earth. But the thing is, when I was a kid growing up, I remember watching 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea when I was like 8 years old, and I loved it. It was awesome. It was amazing. And it was one of my favorite childhood films. So the people criticize this for not being full of cutesy characters, that's basically the extent of it. That they said this is more of a standard adventure film, this is not a good kids film, is wrong. And I have my own history, and not just me. I mean, I went to school, I talked with my other classmates. They all watched 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea when they were 8 years old. We all loved it. It was a great adventure film that was good for the whole family. And I think this has gotten this is one of those films that has gotten better with age, in that people appreciate it better. Because it was a Disney film, people expected the singing and dancing and cute little sidekick animals, which none of which this has. So I think it suffered more upon expectations when it was released than the actual quality of the film. I took my kids to see this in the theater, and they liked it. It wasn't necessarily one of their favorite Disney films. My oldest, huge fan of Beauty and the Beast, huge fan of Lilo and Stitch, and huge fan of Tangled. Those are my oldest's favorite Disney films. My youngest is harder to nail down. But anyway, I digress. Like I said, this thing is better upon reviewing and rewatching, not just reviewing. But I think this film deserves better than it got. It's not my favorite Disney film, but it is a really, really good Disney film. And critics were too harsh on it, in my opinion, because it is solid entertainment. And there are dialogue options that, not dialogue options, but there's dialogue in the film that appeals to the adults in the audience that kids would not get. And just because they're there doesn't mean kids can't appreciate the film. It just means that they can watch it again when they're 20 and they'll get the jokes better. That's one of the great things about family entertainment like this, is that there's something there for everyone. There's the character who is the communications expert, this crotchety old old woman who does her job well, and then when she's not doing her job, she feels free to do whatever the hell she wants. she's got some great lines and like things that the kids wouldn't pick up on, but I do have some criticisms of the film. This film is short. It's 96 minutes long. I think it might have been a bit longer with singing and dancing. But because of that, it's kind of rushed. They do, especially in Act 1, they really, in Act 1, throw stuff at you really fast without any real time to let it set and breathe. So that is my one criticism of this film, is that it's fast paced and doesn't give any of the elements really time to settle and breathe. Still a fun film to watch, and still a great film, and still a good addition to Disney's catalog of films. Yeah. That's all I gotta say. As always, thanks for watching. As always, my stuff is crap. And until next time, good hunting.